Welcome back to another episode of Fair Play with Mattie Cadden. Mattie, I heard you were thinking about going to Electric Picnic. Did you go?
Well, I didn't go there, to tell you nothing but the truth. But it was good to see that all the young people went there. I was looking at the paper there last Friday, and there was a young lass going up the street heading off for it. And sure, they had a good day, and everything apparently went well. And sure, they had a real fine time, I suppose. And sure, mothers and fathers at home will be worrying about them, but they're all apparently home safely. And and there was another concert up in ECD or Supplets in Dublin, and people I was talking to that had a fine time there too. And everyone got home safe, and it's good to see that. And strange enough, the young people, the innocent people, they got a good weather for it. They got real good weather, didn't they?
Yeah.
There were just a few days, and they just got out with. So it was good to see that they were after saving up and getting away and, having a good fine time and getting home safely. Will you not agree?
I do agree, yeah.
It's good to see that, and the people at home is delighted that they did, I suppose, and the worries is over for the time being, because around them places there's all kinds of predators and there's stuff being passed around, and with young people they're just a bit weak-minded maybe at the time being till they develop rightly, and you never know what kind of a situation they'll fall into. And I always say, it's always said that, things never planned the way you figure them, but it's usually the company you keep and the people you can trust, that makes the thing right, isn't it? And them people that ran the concert, apparently they ran it very well, and they're looking forward to running another one next year. So I'd say no more on that, so we could go on to farming or whatever, Paul, so.
Just when we are here at Patrickstown Hill, about Loch Crew Cairns, you have an interesting story you were told some time back, Matt.
Well, it just reminds me of the way the weather is today and the way the farming is today, back in my younger days, I was told a story among people that was getting on in life. They were just happened to be talking and accidentally talking about the hill and the cairns here and how it come to be,
That's right. And the story I was told now, Matt, I'd like to just clarify this, about it was meant to be a witch jumping from one hill to the other. Was there any truth in that?
Well, I don't believe it was. Now, everyone, you see, they'll take whatever story is told, take whatever they can out of it if they're interested, and it's the interpretation you take out of a thing now, in my opinion. But the one story I was told about it was back in Peniel times, and we had this situation like we have today. The sun wasn't shining, and there was a lot of dark weather, and farmers was in serious trouble, couldn't grow crops, and they were being pushed off the land, and so it was high ground, and it was hard times and no sun to grow crops. So they went up to the hill and to pay homage to grow crops on the top of the hill. And if ever you go up on top of that hill, true enough, them fellas did tell me about, if you go up there, you'll see famine ridges.
That's right.
Where there was crops grew on top of the hill.
Yeah.
So in all desperate situation, all of them that was left, they went up the top of the hill, organised by a man. He was a farming man, I suppose. He was from a place called King's Mountain. Now, I don't know. It's not too far. It's just here at the back. It's across from Patrickstown. And they grew crops up there, and it was the last resort. And there was a row of standing stones, they told me, from there down to County Cavan, to the border of County Cavan. And the people came up, and there was no mass, and there was no God. They went away from God, and there was an altar built on top of the hill. They call it the Hag's Chairs, but if you're above there on that cairns, there's a cross in the centre of that stone.
That's right.
To me, it's more like an altar. When I did go up and discover what they were talking about, it was an altar. So the people there was a pass up there in Peniel times, and they went up there and they had mass above there. It was Sunday. They went back to God. When all food failed, they went back to their mass, and it was Peniel times. They weren't allowed to say mass down, but they went up there, and a lot of them before that, this man organised them to grow food for themselves above on top of the hill, near the sun, to get as much sunlight as you could. You know, and they cleared all the stones and they built that monument to the sun. You know,
Yeah.
all this rocks, and they built this thing here to the sun, and to get to grow enough of food on the high ground, which was near the sun. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it sounded more sensible and more reasonable to me. And then they went back to their God, you know, and the people on the top of the hill was getting on well, and the people on the low ground went back up to Mass, and, you know, when all fruit failed, they went back to the God, the man that owned the land. And they had Mass on top of the hill, and every Sunday they came up across from each side, and, you know, there was elaboration on what was the thing to do, and, you know, to pay homage to the sun and pay homage to... You see, the nearer you are to the sun, that's the way they looked at it, that you grow stuff once you were near the sun, you know, and whatever there was left done that, and that was the story about it. And this man organised that. He was an intelligent kind of a man, and he knew what they needed in life. He knew they needed the sun, you know, and then he knew they needed their God to direct them, spiritual directions, you know. This is what I was told about. But I was told other stories about it, and there's people come from abroad and they look at it, and there's different interpretations, like, but in my opinion, that was the one that sounded reasonable. In desperate situations, they went up to where they get the sun to grow the crops. And in the winter, I went back to Mass because to pay homage to the man above, because it was his land, and to look for spiritual guidance.
Yeah.
You know, it's an island of saints and scholars. You know, and I see it here in the farming today. We have the situation like the farmers, they're all good men, and sure, they're trying to rear their families and they're trying to get on with life. And like I talked about before here is, like, I mean, there's sins and there's greed and there's all kinds of things. But the farmers here, maybe unbeknown to themselves, we have this, I talked about this before, sometime back, this 30 months in the farming with the cattle. And you must have cattle 30 months, under 30 months get into the factory. And you won't have cattle in flesh though, because they're growing, unless you feed them meal. Now, I don't do it, but there's farmers I know, and they feed, and they tell you want to give a ton of meal to cattle to get them into, to kill them under 30 months, to get a good grade. You know, so they're grade. And my understanding of it, they say, I wouldn't know a lot about it, but they say the factories wants red beef, you know, lean beef. You know, it's lean beef, but in my opinion anyhow, and I suppose in the opinion of people in the days gone by, and a lot of my generation that ate beef when they were younger, and mightn't have had a lot of it, but they'll be able to tell you that the flavour is not there. You know, you cook it, the flavour is not there that used to be. So my opinion of it is that you won't have flavour unless you have mature beef. You know, it has to mature, and you know, it has to fully grow, and then it has to flesh, and you know, and it's all, the more it's off national or you know, organic grass, or whatever way you look at the normal type grass, well, the more flavour you'll have. You know what I mean? And if you look around today, any man that's not putting on a lot of fertiliser, or putting on no fertiliser, or even these organic growers, they have lots of grass today. You know, they have abundance of grass. And the man that's putting on fertiliser has no grass. You know. And it goes to show you that the grass grows without the sun for the organic men, but it doesn't grow for the man that's putting on the fertiliser. You know what I mean? It's not growing the way it is. And I suppose a lot of it is down to stocking rates as well. You know, that'd be another factor in the whole matter. But it's sad to see that the farmers, there are a lot of them Catholic men and mass-going men, and they know to themselves, to buy a ton of meal, and they force this animal to have her finished before 30 months. You know, they have to force this animal, and known to, I'm sure it's a known to themselves. They're mass-going men. And why is it they're not thinking about not doing this, like, I mean, or being forced into a situation like this, like, I mean, the religious men, they know it's a mortal sin to force chattel. And yet they're doing it, and yet they're going to mass. You know, they're Catholic men, and I have a feeling it's a known to themselves they're doing it, and they have to do it, and, you know, which is a damnable carry on, like, you mean, and, like, you mean, you can look around at all other situations, and, like, I was talking there about the planning, cutting it short, and it's a sad day. Maybe I didn't elaborate on it much, as I've been talking to people since then. It's sad to see that young people here, they get a job, they leave school, they get a job. Mostly they have to buy a car to go to a job. So they pay tax in their job, and they pay road tax on their car, and they buy a site and they pay tax on that, and they own the site. And then they have to pay roadage. They have to look for planning permission, pay for all the amenities, and they pay the council here. And they still have to provide their own amenities out in the country. You know, they have to pay for their ESB, and they have to pay for their well, and then they have to pay a thing called roadage. They're buying a product off a quarry, and they have to pay the use of the road while they're using it. In some cases along the main roads, I suppose, they tell me, I don't know, but I understand it's up to £18,000 you can pay to the council. But how come the man that has the lorry doesn't have to pay it? He's using the road. The man that's supplying the stuff is using the road. He's supplying the product to you. You are paying a big price. These young people is paying a big price for materials and the price of materials. And yet he has to pay the roadage. And this other man has the lorry. He's the man with the lorry. Why isn't it he hasn't to pay the roadage, or someone else hasn't to pay the road? The man with the product that's selling the product hasn't to pay the roadage. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then, like, I'd have to say, I heard on the radio there during the week that the young people as live in the country, they're educated, they want them. Then trying to compel them to stay 2 years in the country and put back into the country the education they got out of it. You know, they want them to compel them to stay here. They should stay for 2 years and help their country along. You know, but I can't see the sense to it myself. If the country is going to do this to them, if we keep going on the way we are, will be no different nor the people that's coming into this country that's after being run out of their own country with greed. I say it's greed. You know, plundering the young people here with that kind of expenses, you know. And I'm not surprised. I don't blame them from going out into the world, like you mean, and seeing can they live any cheaper, or, you know. But these mortgages are a noose round their neck, and they're clever enough, and they'll get out to hell, because there's no point in staying here, these educated people, like. And it's not fair to them, like. And it's not fair to the people that are out in the world. I don't even know these people, but I know that they're probably running away from a situation that we're going to have in a big way here if we don't stand and find out the reasons why this planning permission is the way it is. You know, back in the years, they were out in the country, and there was an old saying there that put all your eggs in the one basket and it's a whole bundle of trouble. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were scattered out round the country, and there was no pollution, and like the farm and the cattle was scattered round the country, and there was no such thing as pollution. And now all of a sudden we have pollution. You know, we have serious pollution.
Rampant, yeah.
You know, and they tell you, and they talk about carbon footprints. I don't know the hell what the half of it means. But it's not the people's fault, and they bring all the people into the town, and then you have to provide vicinity, and then there's a business made out of bringing the sewerage out of the town, and there's trucks on the roads, and they add to the problems, and there's no one seems to be solving any problem. Would you think that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it's too bad, like, I mean, the main crop of the country, the people, the young people, having to suffer this kind of consequences, you know, and they work hard, and if there's a couple building a house, well, there's 2 cars maybe having to be kept, and, you know, they pay through the teeth, and they're not being helped. Would you think that, Paul?
That's a fact, yeah.
And the farmers is not being helped, and who is the man? Is there any man in there in authority, the minister or some minister or whoever is in charge of the farming, to come out here and elaborate why exactly this 30 months is? We can't get a handle on that. The store say it's not their fault, because that was come out there about 2 or 3 years ago. But whose fault is it, or who's in authority to compel people to force their cattle and to have them out at 30 months? Is he a man? If he's a man, come out here and confront us and elaborate on it. We want to know. The public here, the farming people, needs to know why they're compelled to commit mortal sin to produce beef under 30 months. Now, if he's a man, if he's on the dark side, he must be on the dark side, a man like that. He's not on the bright side. He has to be on the dark side. And if he's in the dark, come out of the dark and tell us the truth here. And be fair about it. Like, I mean, he's earning big money on account of these people. He's representing them. And they're not happy with it, you know, committing sin over forcing their animals. It's not good. And we're not getting the sun because we're getting that. And we won't have crops and we'll have defects over the country on account of this. This is, well, a lot of people will tell you it's greed. And I'll say the same. I'll back them up on that. So what do you think of that, Paul, now? I think we have other things to do. And I'd say the best of luck to everyone out there.
Thanks, Matty.
Yeah, you're very welcome.